We'll take the upstairs. My mom needs the guest room. Avery said, her tone flat, her fingers twirling a silver key I never handed her. I had just set down the coffee tray. 2 mugs, cinnamon biscuits, cream in a little pitcher. The kind of visit you expect from family. Mason smiled at me like we were talking about dinner plans, not dividing up the rooms in my house. I didn't answer right away. The kettle still whistled softly behind me, and I turned it off to give myself a moment. My heart wasn't racing, it was sinking. Avery walked through the hallway like she owned it. She commented on the natural light upstairs, the space in the closets. It's perfect. Her knees aren't great, so she'll need the bigger guest room. Mason and I don't mind the smaller one for now. She said for now, like they'd be staying a while. I looked at Mason. My son, the boy I raised on my own after the accident. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was rubbing the back of his neck, staring at the coasters, like he was waiting for this part to be over. You've already given her a key, I asked, finally not raising my voice. Oh, she had one from when we house sat last fall, Avery said quickly. I made a copy. Just in case. Just in case, I repeated, mostly to myself. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes either. I just poured the coffee and placed a mug in front of each of them. They chatted like nothing was wrong. Told me how grateful they were. How hard it had been to find a good place where 3 adults and 2 kids could live comfortably. But now that we have this, everything feels easier. Now that we have this, I smiled, quietly. Then excused myself to water the porch plants, the key, the rooms, the language. They'd already decided. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't a visit. This was a move-in, and I wasn't part of the plan. I signed the closing papers without telling anyone. No fanfare, no group text. Just me, the agent, and a pen that didn't shake. It wasn't the biggest house I could afford, but it was the right one. A 1-story cedar-shake cottage tucked behind a row of maples, 30 steps from the lake. Hardwood floors, wide windows, and a porch that caught the sunrise just the way I'd pictured it when I worked overtime shifts on holidays, thinking one day. I had pored over the numbers, calculated every penny. After 50 years of work, after burying a husband and raising a son mostly on grit, this was the reward I'd never asked anyone to give me. I bought it with no cosigner, no loan, no family contribution. My name was the only one on the deed. And for the first 3 weeks, it felt like the beginning of something quiet and holy. Then Avery started bringing ideas. Wouldn't it be fun to paint the guest bathroom something coastal? She asked, walking through with her phone camera rolling. Oh, and we could add built-ins in the den. For the kids' books. She wasn't asking. She said we like it was understood. Like my signature had printed their name beneath it. She asked if I had an extra mailbox key. Then if I'd consider putting a gate on the back path for the kids' safety. It was little things at first. Suggestions, smiles. But they came layered in certainty, assumptions, like the house was on loan to me until their needs grew large enough to absorb it. I stopped responding, just nodded, just listened, just poured more coffee. And still they kept speaking in that future tense tone, building a world where I was the fixture. Soft, quiet, movable. That night, I checked the deed again. Held it in my hands. Ran my thumb over the embossed seal. The house was mine, but the air had changed. And so had the mail. It was a small envelope. White. Ordinary. But the name on it wasn't mine. Yvette Carlson, it read. Care of my address. I stood at the mailbox, staring at it like it might explain itself. The handwriting was neat, unfamiliar. A return address from Florida. It took me a minute to place the name. Avery's mother. I brought the letter inside and set it on the counter next to the coffee pot. I didn't open it. I just stood there, waiting for my pulse to slow. The smell of dark roast filled the kitchen, but I couldn't taste anything. Later that morning, I drove down to the post office. The clerk was polite. too polite. Yes, she said, tapping her keyboard. Looks like the forwarding order was placed 3 days ago. Mail for Yvette Carlson is now being rerouted to this address. Is that a problem, ma'am? I didn't answer her right away, just asked for a copy of the form. The signature wasn't mine. I drove home in silence, the heater humming low. No radio, no thoughts. Just that low, crawling realization that someone had made a decision about my life without including me in it. Again, I didn't call Mason. I didn't knock on any doors. I called a locksmith. Then I called a lawyer I used to work with back when I handled surgical scheduling and estate transfers at the clinic. She picked up on the second ring. "Are you okay?" she asked already, reading between my silence. "Just want to make sure things stay how I left them," I said. When Mason was 12, he brought home a permission slip for a school trip to Washington, D.C. He left it on the counter like it was nothing, like the price wasn't 2 shifts at the urgent care clinic and 1 less bag of groceries for the week. He wanted to go so badly. Said he'd never seen snow fall on marble steps. Said all the other kids' parents were already booking flights. That night after he went to bed, I sat on the floor with his jacket in my lap, patching the sleeve where the seam had split. I used gray thread. It didn't match, but it held. I stayed up figuring out how to afford it. I worked extra Sundays. I said no to coffee with friends. I pawned a bracelet my mother left me. He never knew. And that was just one trip. When his father died, I sold the coin collection he used to polish on Sundays. Rare quarters. Commemorative sets. Things he planned to pass down. I didn't want to let them go, but tuition was due and I told myself memories mattered more than objects. Every choice I made for the next 20 years had Mason's name somewhere in the margin. When he graduated, I thought, maybe, just maybe, he'd come home with a thank you or a plan to help carry the load. Instead, he brought Avery. And now here we are. She speaks for him more than he does. When she suggests things, new curtains, different paint a second car, he nods like it's all settled. Like the decisions don't cost anything. The last time they visited, I offered him coffee. He said he'd switched to green smoothies. Avery laughed and added, "We're trying to keep him alive longer than his father, right?" He didn't even look at me. I stood there holding a mug I'd saved from his college bookstore and realized how far away he'd drifted. Not just from me, but from the weight of everything I gave up. The mail wasn't the first red flag. It was just the one I finally decided to answer. Avery said it was just a casual dinner, nothing formal, just family time. I brought a pie. Still warm, still homemade like I always had. Mason opened the door, kissed my cheek, and took the dish like it was an offering. Their kitchen smelled like lemon and garlic. Their kids were chasing each other barefoot through the hallway. Music played low in the background, and Avery was wearing that smile she saves for guests and social media. We sat down at the table, Avery at the head, Mason beside her, me near the window. She poured wine before I even asked for water, and I noticed there were only 3 place settings with glasses. When the kids were settled with plates of pasta in the other room, Avery stood and tapped her glass. "I just want to say how lucky we are." She began, her voice rising just enough to make sure I wouldn't miss a word. "Not everyone has a chance to live in a multi-generational home. It's a gift, really, especially for our kids to grow up with wisdom under the same roof." Mason nodded, chewing like this was rehearsed. "And with your health still strong, Malis," she continued, "we know you'll thrive with company. Elders need company." I looked at the glass in front of me. The water never came. We've already started making some space. Mom's looking forward to being near the lake. She'll be moving her things in slowly, no pressure. Just settling. Settling. Like fog. Like dust. Like someone you expect to stay. I didn't interrupt. Didn't ask questions. Just listened, like I always had. But I took note of every word, every assumption, every timeline they spoke, as if I had already nodded along. When dinner ended, I helped clear the table. Avery handed me the pie plate empty. "Everyone loved it," she said sweetly. I smiled, carried the dish to the car like a relic. They think I'm soft, malleable, convenient. But I have a calendar. I have a lawyer. And I have no intention of being anyone's unspoken agreement. It came on a Thursday afternoon just after I'd finished watering the porch ferns. My phone buzzed with a group text, no name I recognized, but the preview caught my eye. Avery C. Her house will need a refresh once we're fully in. I opened it, thinking it was a mistake. It was, just not the kind she'd want to admit. There were 4 other names in the thread. I didn't recognize most of them, but one was Avery's sister, and another I remembered from a Thanksgiving conversation, her cousin, I think. I scrolled once, twice, and stopped at the next message. Kristen L. Does she even know yet, Avery C? Not officially, but she'll adjust. Marina P. She doesn't seem like the type to fight it. The thread continued with talk of paint colors, furniture placement, and how they'd finally have space to breathe. One message joked about converting my reading nook into a yoga corner. Another asked if the garage could be used for storage. I read it twice. Slowly. Not because I didn't understand, but because I needed to feel every word settle. They weren't easing into my space, they were plotting their occupation. And they weren't hiding it from each other. Just from me. Except now, they hadn't. At first, I didn't respond. I just pressed my thumb to the screen and took a screenshot. Then another. Then I forwarded the entire thread to my own email, labeling it contingency. They didn't notice. No one followed up to say it was sent by mistake. No frantic retraction. No apology. They believed what they said. They believed I was too soft to stop them. Later that evening, Mason texted to ask if they could swing by with a few boxes this weekend just to drop them off. I replied one word, no. He didn't respond. But I could almost hear the silence on the other end of the line. They had counted me out. And now I was counting days. He pulled into the driveway at 6:42 a.m., right on time. I had chosen the earliest appointment available. Less chance of being seen. Less chance of second guessing. He stepped out with a small toolkit and a clipboard, and I met him at the door holding a cup of black coffee and a quiet resolve. Full lock change, I said. Every entry point, including the garage. He nodded. Didn't ask why. Just got to work. While he moved around the house, I opened the little metal box near the door where the spare keys had once been stored and removed the last one Avery had copied. It was marked with red tape. She'd said it was just in case someone forgot theirs. I dropped it in the trash. I logged into the garage panel and reset the access code, then printed a new guest list for the security system. Only my name remained. By the time the locksmith was done, the sun had fully broken over the trees. Light spilled across the porch like nothing had ever been touched. But everything had changed. He handed me the keys, 4 of them. I took all 4 and placed them in a drawer. Only I had the key to tucked behind old tax records and the deed. Somewhere, no one would reach but me. No anger, no yelling. Just the clarity they never expected me to have. I went inside, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and sat in my usual spot by the lake-facing window. The surface was still. The reflection clear. I had imagined this view for years and worked too long to let someone else decide who got to share it. By 9, I had deleted the old group thread and created a new document on my computer titled Contingency Actions. Executed. Then I folded the deed back into its folder, clicked the lockbox shut, and waited for the sound of tires on gravel. I saw them before they reached the steps. 3 figures, 2 rolling suitcases, a garment bag, and that confident walk Avery always had when she believed the world would bend for her. Mason was at the back, carrying a duffel over his shoulder. Eyes down, Avery didn't knock. She went straight for the door and inserted the key. She turned it once. Then again. Nothing. She pulled it out, frowned, and tried the knob. It didn't budge. She looked over her shoulder at Mason, then tried again, harder this time, like maybe the door would change its mind. Yvette stood just behind them, wearing a sun hat and holding a casserole dish wrapped in foil. I opened the door before they could knock. Just a crack, no more than necessary. Avery stepped forward like she meant to come inside, but I didn't move. I held a cardboard box in both hands, taped neatly labeled with her name. Inside, 3 pieces of redirected mail, 2 housewarming brochures she'd left on the counter, and the change of address form from the post office. She didn't speak. Not yet. I passed the box to her gently, then let go. She reached out to catch it a bit too late, almost fumbling the edge. Mason opened his mouth, but no words came. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I simply closed the door. No slam. No lock click. Just a slow, deliberate end to the conversation they thought they could keep controlling. Behind it, my house exhaled. The silence folded in around me like armor. Through the window, I saw them stand there for a moment, suitcases at their feet, stunned by a door that no longer opened for them. Mason said something to Avery too quiet to hear. She shook her head. Yvette bent to pick up one of the bags, the foil casserole still in her other hand. By the time I turned the kettle on, the porch was empty. The box was gone. But they had left something behind, the sound of a key that no longer fit. The next morning, Avery sent a text. We'll be telling people what really happened. How you locked your family out. How you embarrassed us. Just so you know. No greeting, no punctuation, just threat, thinly veiled as self-righteousness. I didn't respond. By noon, Mason called. I let it go to voicemail. He left a long message, his voice tight, exhausted. He asked if we could talk. Said this had gotten out of hand. Said Avery was just trying to make it work. He never said sorry. That night, Theta from next door knocked with a bag of groceries and a half smile. I told you she was trouble, she said, sliding the bag onto the counter. That girl came by asking if I'd witnessed any elder neglect. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my hedge trimmers. I offered her coffee. She took it without sugar, same as always. Turns out the story had already begun to spread, but not from Avery. My realtor, Brenna, who helped me close on the house last spring, had seen one of Avery's public posts. It was vague, but pointed something about elder isolation and inherited property. So Brenna posted her own version anonymously in a homeowner's forum. She didn't name names. She didn't need to. Woman buys retirement cottage alone. Months later, son's wife makes spare keys, starts forwarding her mother's mail there. Plans to move in uninvited. Owner finds out, changes the locks. Silence ensues. It hit a nerve. Within hours, the story was reposted by a community legal blog. The comment section lit up, people sharing their own versions. A few even guessed it was me. I didn't confirm. I didn't have to. What surprised me most wasn't the attention. It was the quiet chorus of "I believe her" that kept showing up under each thread. Strangers who understood that peace doesn't have to be earned twice. That silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom choosing when to speak. By the end of the week, Avery stopped posting. Mason sent one last text. I don't know how we got here. I did, and I wasn't going back. It's been 3 weeks. I wake at 6 without an alarm. Just the hush of morning settling through the trees. The air is crisp but soft, and I move through the kitchen like I've finally learned the rhythm of stillness. The coffee brews slow and steady. I no longer rush it. One mug, my favorite, chipped at the lip handle, worn smooth. I take it to the screened porch where the light always arrives first. The chair out here is just one now. I donated the other last Sunday. The guest room is empty. I stripped it down to the bare floor, gave away the frame, the mattress, The extra dresser. The closet holds only paint supplies. Now brushes I haven't touched in years. Colors I used to dream about when I was too tired to dream at all. The easel is back up. It leans by the window in the den, where the sun hits the wall for 2 hours each afternoon. I've started with small canvases, just color, nothing specific yet. I'm letting my hands remember what freedom feels like. The will has been updated. I removed the names that no longer call the ones who assumed their place without earning it. I added a foundation one that gives housing support to older women in legal disputes with family. The lawyer smiled when I explained. "Practical," she said. "Mason hasn't come back. I think he knows better now. Or maybe he doesn't, and that's part of the gift." The not knowing is peaceful too. I saw Avery's mother at the grocery store once. She looked away before I had to. That was fine. The lake outside is glass still. Not a ripple. I sit with my coffee and no expectations. No negotiations. The only sound is the breeze brushing the screen and the quiet weight of space that finally belongs to me. There are no spare keys, no second sets of plans, no whispered assumptions in the hallway, just a house, a porch, a lake, and a life I reclaimed one locked door at a time.